Hello everyone, this is HR Perspective, and today we have with us Mr. Parag Bhatt. He is the Group HR Head of Tatvik Analytics. Hello Mr. Bhatt, thank you so much for doing this with us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Okay, so Mr. Bhatt is a PhD scholar and he has also recently, authored a book called Chain Sustained. So talking about, L&D, and you are an expert on that matter. So today we will be talking about learning and development and how it is applicable in the corporate world. So the first question to you, Mr. Bhatt, would be, there is a digital learning revolution that's happening, right? So how is this learning management systems transforming employee development, and how has it, transitioned over the years for that matter?
Yeah, so I mean, if we look back probably 3 decades back, learning was considered like a reward. So if somebody has performed so well, some of the companies used to have their training centers in very exotic locations, and they used to go. So it was a vacation come learning sort of a thing. That's where probably learning was introduced. But now if we see, it has transformed a lot. And how I see the HRMS or a platform of learning works is like, a bridge between what it was earlier and where it is today. So that's where I see it. And overall, I can say if we talk about transformation, it started from just giving something like a training to people who have done well to now achieving business results. So that's where I see the transformation has come up.
So what do you think are the essential components of a successful L&D strategy, and what do you think are the steps to build it? Because we know for a
Yeah.
fact that learning and development right now holds a lot of importance.
Yeah.
Correct? Especially after the pandemic, there are skills that we need to learn, and then upskilling has become one of the very important factors.
Right.
So what do you think are the steps to build it?
In L&D, instructional design is the concept which actually defines step-by-step approach to how strategically you can build your learning programs for your company and your people. So if we talk about the components, it starts with competency framework actually. So if an organization has a competency framework, you can actually make a lot of sense in terms of what as business you want to achieve out of the learning programs. The second thing comes is the strategy of the business, what the business wants to achieve. So that is something that a learning head has to consider as part of considering the learning outcome, or what we call it ILO, intended learning outcome. So in the typical of the instructional design, it starts with there are different models called as ADDIE model or 6D model, or likewise there are a couple of such models. So it starts with basically identifying the needs. That's where I think the learning and development professionals need to work a lot. From there, then you go and understand what design will kind of suit to your requirement, what is the kind of method that you want to apply, and then you go on to delivering it, right? And after delivering it, again, another very, very important aspect is implementation. So in your strategy itself, you should know that how you are going to implement the learning, how you are going to kind of put your learning into practice. And then after that, how you are going to measure the success, which is the evaluation, right? So the typical Kirkpatrick model, it evaluates from the knowledge perspective, it evaluates from the training perspective, it evaluates from the implementation perspective, and also evaluates from the ROI perspective. So if we complete this entire loop, these are the different components of learning that makes a lot of difference.
We know for a fact that a lot of companies do invest the time, efforts, and resources in L&D,
Yeah.
but then many of them go wrong. So why do you think this happens, and where do these companies exactly go wrong with L&D?
I believe there are two things that many organizations they miss. One is they don't consider learning and development function as part of their business strategy. So the day they will position L&D into their strategic domain, I believe that that's the foundation of how they will see learning being able to help them in their business. So that's one mistake which I believe that many organizations still make. The second one is Many organizations, they have a good budget for learning. They also kind of, open-heartedly send people for learning. They provide learning. But then where they miss is kind of, giving them opportunity to use those learning into their real world. So I think if these are the two things which I believe that we see some dearth there, if organizations and the management will see these two pieces well in terms of having L&D as part of the business strategy, and second is like, allowing people to implement their learning into the real world, I think then it will make a lot of difference for them.
So what do you think needs to change in the current framework of L&D, and what would you carry forward in your future L&D strategies
Yeah.
from the existing ones?
Two things I see. One is technology is making a lot of sense in L&D. And when I say technology, and as you rightly kind of introduced me as a PhD scholar, so I am doing my research in how we use artificial intelligence in learning space, and I have written a couple of papers also which got published. Now, where I'm trying to share my learning with my fellow colleagues is that technology is going to make a lot of difference in learning, and so if you want to kind of if there is a large size organization, it's technology which is being able to allow the L&D professional to reach out across geographies. Right, so there are various technologies which is allowing you to kind of reach out to huge mass. That's how we see many of the let's say LinkedIn or Udemy or many HRMS platforms, they are being able to do this. So that's number one. And like whatever instructional design that I've talked about, the typical of the LMS is being able to take care of right from identifying needs to evaluating the ROI. So if we use technology, I think we'll be able to make sense into instructional design, which is very important. Number two is coaching. The days are changed where like now the learning has further evolved, and it teaches us that not every level needs the so-called typical workshops. So there are some set of people for whom self-learning is suitable. There are some set of people or some objectives where you need workshops or outbound training. But then there are also certain levels and objectives where you need coaching interventions rather than the traditional method of training. So if we accept coaching as part of the executive development program, I think that will give better results to organizations.
L&D must align with the company's overall priorities.
Yeah.
It is one of the many major factors that contribute to a business success, right? So, but research has found that several L&D functions fall short on this dimension, however. So why are these functions very disconnected with the overall business, and what impact has it failed to maintain? So, and what can be done actually to make these more aligned towards the business objectives and to make it a priority again?
Yeah, so two things I'll say. One is if somebody is at the strategic side of or administrative side of learning, they need to take care that they don't come up with the year-on-year learning methodology, but they themselves need to involve into what's happening in business, who are the competitors, what are our skill gaps, are we coming with a newer set of SBUs or newer set of products, and if that is so, then like where is it something where the training will be able to add value in terms of developing their competencies, making them more competent, and like something that will make a sustainable model for the business. So the administrative side of the training people, they need to take care of this. Now when it comes to the facilitators themselves or the coach themselves, again sometimes we have seen that they come with a stereotype comfortable model of learning. Somewhere what we need to also as facilitators, we need to change ourselves in understanding that every program is a different program. You need to be very customized, in terms of what you want to kind of use in your learning program, and what is more important is the outcome of the learning. So the way you design the learning, it has to be such, so Dale Carnegie has done a lot of work around learning, and if we try and understand what Dale Carnegie says is, how you are going to make sense in terms of engaging your learners into the learning program, and then are they being able to do something about their learning later on. These two pieces are very important for the facilitators. So I think if the learning administrator takes some responsibility, and so as the facilitator, that's something which I would like to advise to these professionals.
Now, we have spoken a lot about learning and development, and we know for a fact that all of these come under human resources, and that's a very important aspect of any business for that matter. And you were telling me earlier that, when you joined HR, you weren't very sure about, how things are going to escalate and how, how it's going to shape your career for that matter. So what does HR mean to you now? And, what does that term actually stand for?
And very proudly say that HR is the business. Yeah, and you can't get away with your human resource function. That's the position, and I give a lot of credit to people who have actually contributed to the industry through HR. HR is now HRBP, we call it, right? So it's HR business partners. So today's HR is somebody who actually brings in new knowledge to the business. I would say today's head of HR are supposed to be coach to their promoters, managing directors, CEOs and CXOs. So that's the kind of a crucial role that they are playing. And the rest of the HR people, they are supposed to make sure that innovation starts from HR.
So what do you think is the one key skill that HR leaders for that matter need to learn in this, constantly changing business paradigm?
I will say one for two different level. When it comes to the head of HR, I must say that the head of HR have to transform themselves from the traditional or operation HR to strategic and coach. The promoters or the owners of the companies, they are looking at HR heads as coach, advisors. And when it comes to the overall HR professionals, I would say, embrace technology, because the kind of chat GPT or the kind of various other, all these things are going to disrupt a lot in terms of what today we are doing. Learning orientation is supposed to be the key expectations from the HR professionals themselves, and in that learning orientation, I think technology is going to play a lot of part. So you can't stay away from technology, you will have to learn technology.
So you are a learning advocate, right? And then you have definitely written a book as well. So tell us more about your book, please.
Change Sustained, actually, me and my co-author Sanjay, both of us, during COVID time, we were sitting idle, and we thought that why don't we, being ICF coach, contribute to the society in terms of how they can step by step in a methodical way create learning for themselves. And that's where we thought of Change Sustain. The name itself suggests what we mean by that. So everyone at times believe that they need to bring some change in themselves. And let's say, for an example, somebody has some phobia and the person wants to work upon that phobia, right? That's the change that the individual wants to kind of achieve. But then at times what happens that as learning and development professionals, we have seen that when they attend the training program, the tempo goes very high, but as and how the time passes, the tempo comes back to normal or suboptimal level. So that's the reason we said change that sustain. So when it is, you give message to yourself, when the development is owned by you yourself and not by others, right? That's the kind of a change which gets sustained. And we have talked about methodologies about how you can use step by step approach to acquire that change, and that will remain with you forever.
Thank you so much for talking about your book and everything.
Thank you.